where you were told something new. We're doing that right now. Rav Zion,
Right now, right now. We'll be digging into this particular Torah portion tonight, so I'll be reserved about certain things. But if I could point out something from the outset, I'll go into the words of the sages. So it says here in the opening line, Yetzei Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva, Vayelech Haran. Yaakov left Beersheba and set out for Haran. And of course, he left from Beersheba. The phrase Yaakov me Beersheba, when rearranged, the final letters of these words spelled Eber. Eber. Eber is none other than the biblical patriarch Eber, of whom our oral tradition says there was an academy of Shem, an academy of Eber. So the sages are stating that looking into what we call the remez level of exegesis, we're looking at the rearrangement of the letters in Yaakov, Me, Be'er, Sheva, which the last letters literally spelled Eber. It says that Yaakov had literally left from the academy of Eber, right? Which is a powerful thing because we discuss at times what it means in the Torah when it says that Yaakov was a wholesome man dwelling in tents, in Hebrew, ohalim, right? A tent in Hebrew is not just what we're thinking, something you buy out of Costco. We have to, whenever we're reading the Torah, we have to place it in its historical context. You might be looking in the Bible and you read and you see the word tent, and you have a picture in your mind because it's just human that when an idea hits your brain, there's a vivid imagination that is a parallel to that immediately in your mind. So for most of us, when we read or hear tent, we think of something you buy out of Costco. But guess what? In the Bible, a tent could be something comparable to our modern day mansion in terms of how big it could be, in terms of how luxurious it can be built. So do not be fooled by the English lingo encountering the word tent and assuming that your mind is wrapped around the correct idea that represents. The term ohel in Hebrew is not only used to describe a tent, it's also used to describe a house of learning, i.e. an academy. So for instance, the chief rabbi can tell you that there are several Torah learning academies here in America and here in Israel and all throughout the world that have the term ohel in them. You might go to a temple that's called Ohel Yaakov, the tent of Jacob, but it's a house of learning. You might have a Beit Midrash that's called Ohel Yaakov, right? But it's a house of learning. It's an academy. So again, when the Torah says that Jacob was a wholesome man dwelling in Ohalim, dwelling in tents, the sages say that this specifically refers to him learning in the academies of Shem and Eber. So again, encoded in the last three letters of the words Yaakov, Mi Be'er Sheva. In the last word Yaakov, you have the Beit. The last word in Mi Be'er, you have the Resh. And the last letter in the word Sheva is the Ayin. And when you rearrange Ayin, Resh, and Beit, you can get Ayin, Beit, Resh, or i.e. Eber. So what the sages developed from that is the idea that Jacob not only left Beersheba, but he left from the academy of Eber. Now, a person may be asking themselves, where are we getting this from? So this is why it's important to learn what we call scribal tradition, right? Because some people look at the Torah. I think the majority of people who look at the Torah, and I'm going to hand this back to you, Chief Rabbi, when I'm done with this statement. The majority of people, when they look at the Torah, they don't see a need to dig deeper. What I see is what it says and what it means, and that's it. But to a trained eye, a person that knows the language, the culture, the tradition, and the history, many of us say, no, there's more to this. Because if you have a basic knowledge of the Hebrew alphabet, the first thing you know is that there are no uppercase letters and lowercase letters in biblical Hebrew. All letters are the same size. But when you look at the Masoretic text, you notice, wait, the Beit of Bereshit is written really large. You turn the chapter and you go to chapter 2, and you see in the word Behi Baram, the Hey of Behi Baram, which translates in the day when they were created, that's extremely small. What is meant in the scribal tradition when they're taking various letters and they're either enlarging it or they're making it very small. What is the impression that we should get from that? There's no grammatical reason why they're doing that. There's no Hebraic reason why they're doing that. That is purely exegetical, meaning that the scribes are communicating information to us. So one of the things we learn about the scribal tradition is that the mention of certain phrases and words together can be decoded to reveal things, because everything we read in the Torah, from Bereshit to Divrei Hayamim to the Book of Chronicles, it's all encoded. There have been people who are mathematicians that also know Hebrew, that have no religious faith or bone in their body, except that they know Hebrew and they're mathematicians. And they read the text in Hebrew and they say, time out, this is an encoded work. What do you mean? Well, in the book of Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, until you get to Exodus chapter 20, verse 14, there are exactly 613 letters. Why is that so special? That's the passage that gives us the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments are the manifestation of the entire Torah. The idea that the first 5 represents that we have a duty to God. The remaining 5 represents that we have a duty to man. That's the whole law. The idea that we have a duty to God and we have a duty to man surmises the entire Torah. Anyone with a deep knowledge of mathematics and Hebrew, when you look at the text, you immediately know this is an encoded work. So when myself and the chief rabbi bring up things of this nature, gematria, letter sequence, don't disregard it because it's something you never heard. Use the moment to pay attention and further research. Chief Rabbi, I'm going to throw it right back on you as we go right back to our share screen.
Yes, beautiful. So, so to understand this next verse, right? The way to understand is the best way, in my opinion, right? There's all types of opinions, but that's the one from your environment. I would say the best way to understand this next verse is to go back to the beginning of the Torah, where it says Bereshit bara Elohim es shamayim va'aretz. But this is the key point. It says Ve'ha'aretz hayatato v'hu ve'choshek al pinei tov ruach Elohim. So it says, and God created, and the earth was which is the whole conversation, was astonishingly dark and empty on the surface, right? And Elohim macharfesh al pinei hamayim, and the divine presence hovered the world. And keep going, but this is so important for this next verse. So it says, "Vayomer Elohim yehira ve'yehira," and then God created light. Ve'ira Elohim, God saw that haor kitov, that the light was good. Hu lavdil Elohim, and God separated ben haor uven hachoshek. He separated the light from the darkness. V'yikra Elohim le'or yom lechoshek kara lalayla ve'hivu erev ve'boker ve'yom ve'echad. Right, erev ve'boker ve'echad. Right. So he says, and God separated the dark, and then God called the light day, and then the dark night, the dark, the dark night, and then there was evening, there was morning, right? So over here we read the parsha ve'ahi, sorry, ve'afi God hamakom ve'alein Shem kiba. So he says, and God, and he encountered a place, and it was nighttime, right? It was nighttime. And he says, and he says, and there, because Ve'shemen, the sun was about to set, Ve'ikak me avine, and he took stones, hamakom, to the place Ve'yashem, and in his place, and he placed them around his head. So this concept of light and day, right? This is the beginning of creation. Light and day, God creates light, and he creates day, and he calls the light day, and he calls the night darkness. So now we're learning how to interact with this process of night spiritually. This is the beginning of that conversation of what is it? Okay, at daytime we do this. We had Abraham wakes up in the morning, he does this whole thing, this concept, and then midday we understand Isaac. Isaac comes, he's midday. Rivka Rebecca comes and she sees him in the middle of the day. He's in the field, the whole thing. And so now we're learning about nighttime. We're learning that nighttime has its own specific spirituality. It has its own specific connection. And where is he learning that? He's learning that here in Jerusalem. This is where he's at. When he's going there, he's putting some people, Baal, the whole thing, I get it, it's a big discussion. But the point is just saying this is where this connection is happening in Israel. That this idea that mankind, right? Because later vibrations came, like Muslims play at night. I don't know if Christians, I'm pretty sure Christians have nighttime prayer to some degree. And this is a part of our thing. As people of the Torah, we dive in 3 times a day. Right? We pray in the morning and we pray in the middle day and then pray at night. So this idea came from the sages. It came from Abraham. Abraham woke in the morning and God gave him the wisdom to be able to see that, you know what? I am supposed to connect to God in the morning.
Come on.
You're supposed to pray in the morning. Before you go and do anything, you're supposed to wake up and talk and connect to God. And in the middle of the day, when you're busy, you're in the middle of everything, you're eating lunch, this, whatever, you're supposed to stop and pray, right? And we learned that by Isaac, right? That's when he met Rebecca, right? And when he was in the field in the middle of the day. And at nighttime, we learn that we are able to talk to God in a unique way, in a frame of Yaakov, right? A person who's on a mission, a person who's in a journey, a person in a vulnerable state, we learn that idea. So here, don't just read this verse and think of it like, oh, wow, okay, he had this whole thing at night. He put stones behind his head, and we're going to keep reading, and there's going to be this whole thing with the angels, whatever. But understand, this is a spiritual apparatus that's being invented. It's not like God has commanded you have to pray at night. We're watching it invented. To this day, we're watching God's will with us as people. And this is the thing. This is a very powerful meditation, and I pass it over to Rob Zion on this. When we read about Jacob, don't read about him as a great man. Read about him as your ancestor. Read about him, visualize. If there's a disconnection between you seeing Jacob as your ancestor, as you seeing Jacob as you being a descendant of Zerah Israel, the seed of Yaakov, right? If you have a problem seeing yourself and you're seeing a great man that you're reading about, that's part of the indoctrination that you have to work through with yourself. You may need to go to a therapist, I don't know, but the point is saying you have to remove yourself from this idea that you're separate from what's inside of the Torah. That is something that's great and wise and amazing, but it's over there and you were lucky enough to stumble upon it. No, this is your ancestry. This is what was removed from you, right? And so when we read about Jacob and we read about his journey and his challenges, you got to look at yourself. You got to look at your cousins. You got to look at your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and your parents and all these different people and say, oh, wait, you know what? We've been trying to figure it out on the same journey that we see Jacob on this first verse of this parsha, this first pasuk, this journey that he's on, we got to see, this is my journey right now. We're still trying to figure it out the same way. So it's saying that it's a powerful meditation for us to say, why do I not see myself as Jacob? It's all you, Rob Zion.
All right, hallelujah. So I'm going to go on to the next verse, which is verse 12. And verse 12 reads, hallelujah. Wa yachalom wehine sulam mutsav arza we rosho magia ha shemaima wehine malke Elohim olim we yordim bo. He had a dream. Behold, a stairway was set on the ground, and its top reached to the heavens, and angels of God were going up and down on it. I want to stop there and add my commentary. So there's a lot that can be said, but I'm going to attempt to synthesize it as much as I can. He had a dream in which he saw a staircase or a ladder, right? The Hebrew term sulam typically in the Bible denotes a ladder, right, of ascent and descent, as that is the purpose of a ladder. If you're up somewhere high and you get on a ladder from somewhere high, you're able to descend. If you're trying to get somewhere high and you step on the ladder, you're able to ascend. So a ladder conceptually represents one's ability to ascend and to descend. Think about that. So he dreams a dream, and in the dream, he sees a ladder that is set and connected from heaven to earth and earth to heaven. Apart from that, he sees angels, Malkei Elohim, the angels of God, were going up and down. The first thing I ask myself, Chief Rabbi, is why doesn't he see the angels going down and up? The Torah says he saw the angels going up and down, which means it's clear that they were already on the ground. Pay attention. The Malakim, the angels, are on the ground. So that's the first thing that the Torah wants us to know, that the angelic hosts on high, the watchers, the protectors, roam this realm, roam the earth. So the Torah wants to impress on our mind that we have visitors among us, not in the extraterrestrial sense, but in the spiritual sense. Just like the Torah literally says, 3 people visited Abraham. And we know that the 3 people that visited Abraham were all Malakim, they were all angels. So I pay attention not just to what is said, but how things are said. The notion that Jacob doesn't see angels coming down and going up, he sees angels going up and coming down. So my first impression is, oh, angels are among us. That's the first thing. They're among us. It's to teach us that angels are among us. The next thing that we can draw down from this is the type of way that heaven is described here. We usually see the word heaven in the Hebrew Bible, and I'm going to highlight that so everybody could see. We usually see the word for heaven in the Hebrew Bible in the plural, right? Shemayim, to which people even wonder whether or not there's a singular way to say it. Here we encounter ha-shemaya, which literally means toward heaven, but again, it's in the singular, towards heaven. So there's a reason, by the way, why the general word for heaven in biblical Hebrew is a plural word. There are levels and stages to what we're calling Shemayim, or i.e. heaven. And we know that there are 7 levels to what we call heaven. We also know that there are 7 levels to what we call Sheol, or the grave. And what makes us think that? There are 7 words used in the Hebrew Bible to describe heaven. But because most of us are just reading the Bible in English, each time we see the word heaven, if we know Hebrew, we assume every time that that word is Shemayim. What if it's the word Zevul? That's another word used for heaven in the Hebrew Bible. There are 7 words, Rakia. There are 7 words used in the Hebrew Bible to denote the heavens, because there are 7 levels or successive stages. So what's poignant now to say, Chief Rabbi? It says that the ladder reached from earth toward Shemaya, toward heaven in the singular. So this is a very particular station and place in the heavens. The angels didn't go to the 7th heaven. They didn't automatically ascend from earth and go to the 2nd heaven. This is a very specific vantage point. Hence why it's now in the singular. They went to a very specific level of heaven. Now, in the oral tradition, it is spoken of a spiritual space on high, which is referred to as Yetzirah. And Yetzirah is supposed to be the realm where all angels dwell. So in commenting on this, Chazal notes by use of the term Shemaya, toward heaven, that these angels returned to their spiritual station on high, which we know in our oral tradition as Olam Yetzirah, the universe of Yetzirah. So this is a very specific vantage point that the angels are ascending to and descending from. Chief Rabbi?
Yeah, 100%. The codes are coming out. We're bringing out the codes. The system. We're not just reading a text. We're reading a series of codes that's an infinite amount of meaning. The word vayichalon, he dreamed. Now we just talked about that first verse. We talked about this idea of understanding the system of Abraham. Right, Abraham leaving Haran, and then going, eventually ending up in Beersheba. Yaakov being in Beersheba and going to Hebron. We said that. So here we see an allusion towards the future, right? What is the future? This future place? This future place is a place of dreams. A dreams comes out. What is the dreams? Who's that connect us to? Yosef Asadik, right? Yosef Asadik. What was he known for? He was known for dreams. This is Jacob's son. Yosef Asadik, his dreams went into progressions. It was the dreams that were about him, and everyone hated him because he said this was going to happen, and bow down to me. And then later, he articulated other people's dreams, and that eventually allowed him to redeem all of humanity, right? And so this dynamic of the angels, as Rob Zion is bringing out, the angels going up, the angels going down, this whole participatory process of the angels and the functionality is the dynamic of Yaakov that could be understood through Yosef and his dreams, right? So we're seeing all these things coming together right now. We're seeing Avraham Avinu, which is the past. We're seeing Yosef Asadik in these words in the future. You know, everything that's going on for here, and this idea of, you know, the Baal Sulam, right? So Baal Sulam is known as Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag. And he's a rabbi that I think me and Rob Zion were affected by. On the start of my journey to Torah, I started, you know, with the Kabbalah Center with Rav Berg, and the Rav Berg was a student of Rav Brandwein, and Rav Brandwein was a student of Rav Ashlag. Rav Ashlag was one of the greatest commentators of the Zohar in the 20th century.
That's right.
And so his nickname was known as Baal Sulam. He was a master of the ladders, meaning that the people who learned by him could be able to climb up step by step to the highest levels. And he infused people, like there's different sides. I have a good friend of mine who is connected to Rabbi Gottlieb in Tellstones, who's a student of Baruch Shalom, which is Rav Ashlag's son. So there's different schools of thought, but I come from that school of thought of Rav Berg and that whole thing. And so the Sulam, the master of the ladders, is inspired by this particular Pasukim, and their Torah still exists. It's African Americans, you know, we're teaching the Torah of Rav Ashlag in many ways that is inspired by the Arizal and Rav Shimon and all these things, and Rav Berg and his sons are very close. Those are my friends. I grew up with them, you know, so I know them very well. Yeah, I know Yehuda Berg is my brother. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, he's my brother. Like he sends money to make sure I'm good on Pesach. You know what I'm saying? Like he's family, you know. And Michael is holding down the center and his family. So this, you know, when we're reading about the Sulam, the ladder, we just have to give kavod to the teachers. As Rav Zion was also very much influenced by the Kabbalah Center as well, and Rav Berg's teachings from Rav Brandwein, from Rav Ashlag.
Yes, absolutely. You know, commenting on Yehuda Berg, you know, when I met him, he was a much younger man. We're talking about now at least 23 or maybe 24 years ago when I met him. I met him in 1998. So I don't know the exact math on that, but somebody do the math. That's about 24, maybe even 25 years. And he left an indelible impression on me as well. But I want to say that it was his father that I was mostly intrigued by, and in terms of the two male influences. But their mother, Karen Berg, was on a different level, Chief Rabbi Mordecai, because as you know, she had gifts, right? She had what we call matanot. She had gifts. And one of her gifts was her ability to read a person based on a person's mazal. So she has sat me down in a room for hours and just talked about my mazal of akrav and what that means for me, and how growing into understanding of who I am spiritually can help me in my journey in this world. So my conversations with her were always very powerful. And Rav Berg, right, the father, Philip, he has a funny name in I forgot the language he even speaks, his native tongue, but he's not from America. I forgot exactly where he's from, but in his language, his name translates to something else, but we know him as Philip Berg or Rav Berg. And I want to say that he just has this way of looking at a person. And I'm seeing that you have been in his person. I'm pretty sure you know what I mean. He has a way of just looking at a person before he speaks, right? And then by the time he starts speaking, like, you're absolutely engaged. So I really do relish those moments and times that I spent at the Kabbalah Center here in New York City. I learned a lot. Even the story of how I stumbled upon it is a story within itself. But yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I want to also point one more thing out about this particular pasuk, this particular verse now. The word that you're focusing on, which is the word wayachalom, right? And he dreamed, and he had a dream, right? It's in the past tense, right? And he had a dream. So we learn from here, if we didn't already know it, that Yaakov is a prophet. He has a dream in which the Creator reveals the heavenly orders to him. Remember, the Creator says to Aharon and Miriam in Numbers chapter 12, he says, if there's a prophet among you, I reveal myself to him in a dream or in a vision. Through the use of exegetical tools, we take that a little further. The word for dream in Hebrew, halom, it has a numerical value of 84, right? Every Hebrew letter is also a number. So the word dream, halom, has a numerical value of 84. Why is that so special? Well, that's the numerical value of the name Chanok, the one who was taken from this world and was not. Apart from what the text says, we don't know what happens to him. But the oral tradition goes into what happens to him, where he becomes a heavenly attendant, and it is through him that all dreams revealing the heavenly order are manifested. Similarly, we learn of an angel on high by the name of Gabriel. We learn mainly of him in the book of Daniel. Whenever Daniel doesn't know something, the angel Gabriel reveals these truths of the heavenly order directly to and through him. Why is that significant? Well, the name Gabriel also has a numerical value, but this time 246. And that's the numerical value of the Hebrew word mareh, vision. So we learn from this that all prophecy, everyone, comes vis-a-vis or through the agency of an angel on high. There are very few people in the Torah that the Creator spoke directly to and directly through. That was Adam with Hawa, Adam and Eve. He spoke directly to and directly through. We know he did that with Abraham. We know he did that with Sarah. We know he did that with Moses. But after that, we don't have any more record of God speaking directly to and through a person without the agency or intermediary of an angel. So all prophecy comes through an angel, right? So dreams are revealed through the angel Chanok, Enoch. Visions are revealed through the angel Gabriel. When there's a prophet among you, I reveal myself to him in a vision and in a dream. So it is also from this vantage point that we learn, if we didn't already know, that Jacob was a prophet. Because here it is, the Creator is revealing the heavenly order right before his eyes through the agency of a dream. And if we wish to go any further, seeing that it's a dream, it came through the agency of the angel Chanok. Some call Metat Ron. Chief Rabbi?
100%. This is very, very, very deep stuff you're bringing out. And